Hello. Today we have very unique person in my podcast. His name is David Klein, and he is founder and CEO one of the first digital therapeutic company, or maybe even the first digital therapeutic company that grew from 0 to 1 for a relatively short time. I'm Leon Eisen, serial entrepreneur, venture partner, and host of their Unicorn Breakdown podcast. So, like always, subscribe, like, and we're going to start. Hello, David. I'm so happy to have you on my podcast. For a long time, I'm following your company, Click Therapeutic, even maybe from the beginning. And I had amazing opportunity to meet you in one of the recent conferences in New York. And even for the first conversation, I learned a lot how it's really to get to the unicorn status. I know you're not there yet, but very soon, right? So let's start from introducing yourself. So please, who are you?
Sure. Yeah. Nice to see you again, Leon, and thanks for having me here. My name is David Klein, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Click Therapeutics. We're developing software as medicine. So very exciting space, and it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you, David. So how I think everything starts from the idea. So how this amazing idea came over you? It was time when people didn't think about digital therapeutic. It was everything about something like monitoring applications to manage something, and suddenly digital therapeutic. So to train people and to treat people through their mobile, something unusual. When it happened?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question, Leon, and it goes back all the way to 2012 when really the kind of mobile smartphone started to be much more prevalent. And at the time, I was working with a fellow who was the head of clinical neuropsychiatry from Cornell, and we saw this kind of massive increase in mobile phone usage, and it was just something that was so clearly changing people's behavior, and we thought even, in some cases, rewiring their brains. And so we figured, look, if we could harness the power of behavioral and cognitive modification and target specific diseases with that, those interventions could be, as important, if not important, more important than many drugs, and ultimately combined with drugs someday to create safer and more efficacious treatments. So we created a term called digital therapeutics and a company called Click Therapeutics, really based on that premise that we would prove that software could drive clinical and ultimately health outcomes in randomized control kind of biotech-like clinical trials.
So how did you start the company? How much have you raised on pre-seed? And why why people and investor were so much excited working with you?
Yeah. Well, to be frank, Leon, they weren't excited. So I actually seeded the company myself. If you want to go to kind of the pre-seed era, if that's even a thing, I'm not sure I've used that term, but I seeded the company with my own capital. Obviously
Wow.
relatively limited. Um, until we took our first round of what you'd call, I guess, seed capital from outside investors in 2015. Right in the beginning of 2015, we had closed that.
Hmm. So I can say you're a pure bootstrapper, right?
Yeah, to put it mildly, Leon.
Yeah, so interesting because I was aware that you just was in a good time in a good place, but actually you did yourself, right? You grew
Yeah.
yourself.
No, look, I thought I knew we were in a good place, right? And I still firmly believe that. I hoped we were in a good time. I thought, look, I'd go tell people this idea and they would say, I would go tell pharma or whoever, and they would say, "You're a genius. You solved one of the biggest issues in medicine. We're gonna give you the, Nobel Prize and make a statue of you." And that it didn't quite happen like that, Leon. We're still kind of, you know, um, really kind of fighting to get the recognition for the space that it really deserves. But it's become obviously a much more favorable environment. I think as time has gone on and as Click has hit, pivotal trial after pivotal trial, now 3 in a row. There's been, much more widespread acceptance from, both the academic community, the provider, the payers, and I think it's the one community that's always believed was the patient community. They were
Yeah.
always big believers that this space could be helpful.
Interesting. And how much have you raised so far?
Oh, I don't know. Probably a bit over $100 million.
100 million. So what's the difference between raising the first million and raising the 100 million?
Well, it just is stressful, Leon, but
More stressful, right?
I think they're all stressful, all these raises. I think, it's a different group of investors. When in our first round was much more like family offices and high net worth individuals and so on. Our first kind of institutional money came from actually a company called Magellan Health.
Hmm.
And that might have been in 2016. And that was a few $1 million out of Magellan, who ultimately actually they were bought by Centene. Um, so that's where our first kind of round of institutional money, as they say, came from Magellan. And then we did a Series A, which was, kind of pharma VC backed. Then a Series B, which was, was oversubscribed and was done by, a very significant group of investors of, very sophisticated, kind of ranging from, large scale private equity companies to, super smart biotech hedge funders and even an Israeli life science investor co-led that round called it Excel.
So what do you think? What is your key success factor or unique insight that allowed you to raise so much capital? It's definitely not only traction and not only idea. It's something altogether, but some personal traits are very important here. So what is your unique insight like a person who
Yeah.
allowed to raise so much capital?
That's a good question, Leon. It's a great question because it's not something I've ever thought about before. Um, but if I have to say one thing, probably my charm, Leon. I mean, you met me,
Yeah, I experienced this.
I'm an incredibly charming person.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I think, it's a great question. I think ultimately it's our data. I mean, it go when you're talking about this level of sophisticated investors, that goes way beyond, in my view, the charisma or charm or intellect of a CEO. I mean, those I think are important, um, but probably the key factors really are our software platform, our scientific integrity, and the strength of our clinical data. I mean, that's what really has been the deciding factor, I think, in these raises.
I think we have to, and founders should write it down because, every time founder should turn himself or herself and learn how to become founder. I call it fundable founder and fundable startup. It's not easy. Totally agree. And what is your hobby? One second. Have any investor ask you about your habit?
My hobbies? No, I don't think any investors ever asked me about my hobbies.
That's interesting. I ask everybody.
My hobbies are healthcare, Leon, and I think one of my hobbies I've really got into recently are like my personal health, and I've started actually biking and kind of weightlifting a lot. And I think my like hobby is really in biometric data. I'm just fascinated with the kind of the the increasing power of these sensors to really determine somebody's biometric data. And and I'd say AI is a huge hobby. If I'm ever not doing something, um, you know, health directly health related, I'm using AI to like figure out healthcare stuff. Um, and I'm just fascinated with AI, and I used it in kind of every aspect of that.
Yeah, I understand this because I just see a watch so big, so thick
Yeah.
that it looks like it keeps all the database.
Yeah, no, it does. It's like it's got a nuclear battery here, Leon.
Yeah, but looks there.
Charge it once a year. Yeah.
Amazing. So, what's your pain for today? So now you are very well established entrepreneur. You have very well established company, and I know you are growing and you have some goals. So, what's your pain today for your company?
Yeah, well, look, you know, I think it's time to go to Israel, Leon. So that's my next trip. I'm going to Israel. I haven't told you yet, but I'll be going to Israel in for the week of February 10th and 11th and that.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
I would love to meet you here.
Yeah, so there's like it's like a health tech mission. I'll send you the details offline.
Ah, okay. So you are included in David's technician. That's very nice. David,
Yeah.
a year ago, he was on my podcast, and one of the
Cool.
first podcasts. Yeah,
Okay. Very cool.
yeah, very cool and cool guy. So, but this is a pain. Go to Israel. I mean, pain in your business.
Oh, I thought you said what's the next plan?
No, a plan. Okay, sorry.
Well, that's the next plan. That's not a pace. That's an honor.
Amazing plan. Now let's talk about pay.
That would be kind of messed up if I said that, Leon. Look, I'd say, um, if you asked me a couple years ago, I would have kicked back pretty hard on us being successful. I think we have a long way to go. Now that we have the first ever FDA authorized app to treat depression, and that was done in collaboration with our partner Otsuka, and the first ever FDA authorized app to treat migraine, which is a wholly owned Click asset. I
Yeah.
think I think, that there is a certain level of success there that no one could ever take away, right? Those are very big deals and very important to the world and the world of medicine. But we're nowhere near where I think we need to be or where I want to be. Or look, I want digital medicine to enter into standard of care. And and that's not because I want to be a unicorn. Leon. I mean, I think though, that would be a nice side effect, right? But that's because I think that's where it belongs. Digital medicine, if someone goes to the doctor, no matter what they have, I mean, high blood pressure, you name it, cognitive and behavioral modifications should be included um, in those medicines, right? And whether that's combined with the drug or in lieu of the drug. And that's what I want to see happen. So, we have a long way to go. And then, I'd love to knock down the access barriers in medicine, right? Our medicine can get anywhere in the world in a moment's notice, right? And, so we have a long way to go before, you'll hear me say that we're, very successful.
That's amazing. So what's your plan specifically for 2026?
Um, well, look, I think, some of the things I can talk about are,
No,
uh,
you don't have. No
we're
secrets.
we're super excited about really getting our migraine program out to patients in need. That program has phenomenal data. I mean, really showed um, a, 3, um, 3-point monthly migraine reduction, right? So the average patient in that pivotal trial went from, about 7.5 monthly migraine days to about 4.5, which was statistically significantly greater than the control. We also had, very significant results on things like the migraine-related quality of life scale and the migraine disability scale, something called the MIDAS. Very important to our patients. And this is an innovation that I think there's upwards of 1 billion people in the world who could benefit from it. So, I'm very focused on, getting this out to the world. And I think that's, one of the big things that we have planned for this year.
Today what happens? Most of the people still waiting for a month for appointment. So they have some pain, they have some problem, an appointment in a week, in a month, in a couple of months. So how to create awareness that company like yours exists and can really help?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's the next frontier for us, right? We've never been much of a, awareness drivers or PR company or marketing or anything like that, but it's become really clear that we have to really do that. Um I think we're kind of pivoting as the company into much more of a commercial entity where we will, be getting that message out ourselves. And this will be a year for us on kind of marketing and commercial where we'll be trying to tell that story a lot more than we have been in the past.
Yeah, very good. Where every successful company is built on some fundamental values, principles, and specifically companies of your size. So, what kind of values and culture you promote within your company?
Yeah, so we have something called the Click Way. Um
Oh,
and
you can make.
you could you could actually see that on our website. Um I think it says how we roll or something cute like that. But um, you know, we have, different philosophies that are extremely important to us, but the, core for the number one Click way is patients first. And that to put patients and their loved ones at their center of everything we do. And that's the number one philosophy. And, it's mentioned in almost every internal meeting, right? Is this putting the patient first? Is this putting the patient first? And we firmly believe that that's the right way to develop our programs.
No, I agree. I totally agree. I also cultivate such type of values in all my companies.
That's great.
So today it's a hard time for healthcare entrepreneurs, and I see a lot of new incomer and founders who cannot do anything. They cannot raise money. They cannot make pilots. They cannot get grants. So there is a huge difference between what happened 15 years ago and today. So what do you think? Is there any way to accelerate and improve um, startups development in healthcare?
Look, I think we're doing our role to improve that. I think that, Click being we need to make Click massively successful and get our software to hundreds of thousands and millions of patients, and that'll drag the whole sector with us, or, certainly a subsector of health tech, right? And there's no bigger thing that we can do to help the sector than to be successful.
So you believe in leadership in healthcare. So you are like leader could align all other people around you. But do you have any plan to help young entrepreneurs? Or maybe you're doing this now.
Yeah. I mean, I help young entrepreneurs all the time, Leon, right? So my door is always open and I always speak with people, and, not that I'm always right, right? I mean, it's flattering sometimes that people want to speak with me, and, I can just give advice on what I think has worked thus far, right? But again, we have a long way to go even ourselves. Um, but I have, any number of entrepreneurs that I speak with, all the time, and try to provide, you know, the most help that I can give, and that's an offer that I have outstanding to anyone, anytime.
So taking your experience today, what do you think? What kind of things you would do differently?
You mean if I could rewind?
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't think about that
Just
too.
little reflection.
Yeah. I don't think about too much and dwell on the past. What can I do? Well, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I'm much more of a future person, Leon. So I'd have to think about that. There's always stuff you could do differently, um, but that's not really, core of kind of who I am, or how we run this business. And I think we're really much more focused on, sure, we learn from the past, and apply those lessons to the future, but we're really focused on, what we can do tomorrow and in a year and 5 years, as opposed to, "Oh, we should have done this differently or that differently." So I'll have to come back to you on that.
So I think this is exactly your factor of success. So it's a huge lesson. Not everybody can think about future only and consider your experience like just to learn from this. People reflect, people just depressed. But when you have this stamina to think about future, I think this is behind your success. And this is what every entrepreneur should learn how to do it.
Yeah, possibly, possibly.
So, what do you think today to change or improve to reach your goal? You said side goal to become unicorn, but real goal to help millions of patients. So, what do you improve in your company now?
What do we improve?
Yes, yes. Do you have something what you're going to improve now?
Look, I think we're gonna improve our, you know, commercial and and our capabilities as it relates to going to market ourselves. I think, I've a deep interest in taking the migraine program commercial, and a lot of intent on getting this out to hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of people. Um, and that's a heavy lift for us, right? We're not kind of innate marketers or commercial people. We have a couple very strong commercial folks, but it's not like we have a huge commercial organization. We've been much more focused on developing our platform into the, premier AI-driven software as medical device platform in the world, I'd say by far. Um, and we've had a focus on that and on generating, meaningful, important, clinical data. But we haven't focused really on the next phase of our journey, and that's really in commercialization. And I think that that's a big focus of mine and commercializing our own assets in starting with migraine.
And I have maybe the last question to you.
Yeah.
I hope it is the last question. Every entrepreneur experience some danger time where when they just on the brink of losing company, like Elon Musk, for example, had.
Yeah.
Have you had such time?
Yeah.
Could you share?
Yeah, for sure. Look, and if there's any advice I would say, and again, this is what's paid off for me. So, everyone's different, but persistence is the most important attribute in my view that an entrepreneur can have. And there were plenty of times, not just one time, Leon, many times where, I think it would have made sense to throw in the towel and just, okay, give up. Right. And if there's one piece of advice I can leave, anyone who's interested with is that persistence pays off and it's absolutely key to success. At least it has been for me. And, I recognize everyone's path is different. And, hopefully someday we'll be, truly, truly very successful. Um, but without persistence, we certainly wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Okay, so you answer my another question already about what kind of message you're going to deliver
Yeah.
to. Yeah, that's it, I think.
2 for 1, Leon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, David, thank you very much for joining. I learned a lot, and I think our audience will be happy to learn from you as well. How we can find you or your company?
Sure. Yeah, look, you can find us on LinkedIn. That's a great place to follow us. You can email me at david@clicktherapeutics.com if you want. You could go to our website and find us there. Those are some, very good ways to find and to follow us.
Okay, thank you. So we had an amazing interview in my podcast called Unicorn Breakdown with founder and CEO of one of the first, and maybe first, digital therapeutic company, David Klein.
Thank you. Thanks for
So,
having me.
yeah, thank you. Like, subscribe, and meet you soon again.